Hello and welcome to the channel. In this video we're going to continue our topic of methods. We have only one type of method, or kind of one way of using a method, or it's just one method concept that you should know about. What it is called method overloading. Okay, and you might think that's like overwriting the method or making it too big, or overloading it with a bunch of extra topics that don't have to be there. But no, what this is actually what happens in this now is, if say we were to take int, okay, we were using integers here, int number, we'll just make a value here quick, just go int number, int number 2. All right, and we wanted to get, we were working with integers. I'm just going to make these with the zeros for now, and we were using a method. Okay, and this is just a very small example. Well, it's, you don't need to put it in any other kind of program. I just want to kind of outline how this is working. So we say public static void, or we'll say, actually we'll return an integer. Okay, int, and we'll say we'll just get the minimum. We'll just go minimum range, or minimum lesser number. Okay, we'll call it lesser number. What we'll do is we're going to pass in values in here, and what we want is to for this method to just compare the two numbers and then return the one that is the lesser number. All right, so in this form we need to pass in two values, and obviously there'll be integer number 1 and int number underscore 2. Okay, and we will now make an if statement. So if number 1 is less than number 2, then we would like to return, okay, we want to return number underscore 1. All right, and then we can say in the else, well, obviously if it's not, if number 1 is not less than number 2, then at this point we could kind of consider that number 2 would quite possibly be less than number 1, right? We can write the clause in here to make it, if we can go like this so that you don't get into kind of any error prone, but we could assume that in the case that these two numbers were given in, where one was, one was going to be greater than the other at one point or another, then it would be, it's not equal to, so there is, the equal to system would actually throw an error. If they were equal, it wouldn't know what to throw back. So we will just put this in number underscore 2, and then we'll just say in the else, we'll just return a 0. Okay, it'll return a 0 value in the case that none of the numbers are equal to each other, and actually that's kind of bad because of the fact that if you did have 0 and a number 2 was 0 and you return a 0, like, not knowing, at the end of the day it's not a big deal. It's besides the point of what we actually need it to work for. Okay, so we'll say int result, just so we can kind of take back the result. And this again is kind of a very dumb, it's a very basic example, but nonetheless it's one that we can use to kind of outline this for you. So we have a lesser number. Let's take this, and we will now control C, we'll put this in here. We can then take that down, and we'll just pop these off the back, here, and now we got our two numbers that are input. Our actual variable that we want to send in is called number, not number 1, so we'll just remove that. Perfectly fine. We're working with it. We can take this value here, control C, put that here, and now we're doing exactly what we wanted. Okay, so system.out.print line, the say lesser of the two numbers. We can actually just put them in like this. Two numbers, number, and ooh. I mean, you could probably do this in your head and pretty easily. Okay, so pretty easily, the lesser of the two numbers, whatever number we get, and this number will be the result of it. Okay, so we'll put in 15 here, we'll put in 65 here. All right, and we'll run this, just see that it works. We should obviously get 15 being the lesser number that gets returned back out of here. So the lesser number of the two numbers, 15 and 65, is 15. Perfect. Okay, so now this is getting into the topic. We built up our little logic, and now we want to actually work with doubles. Okay, we want to do the same thing with doubles though. We want doubles, number underscore double, or double underscore one, call it. Okay, and we'll make this one equal to 30 or 44.00, don't matter, and double underscore 2 equal to 23, 40, whatever. Okay, we'll just make a double for the result. Double result, we gotta call that because we can't redeclare it. All right, so there's that. Okay, so now what we can do here is, the same name right here, this value is not allowed to be used if you're going to rewrite it. If we were to come down here, I'm going to go like this and say that, now we get this error, right? Already defined, can't actually define it again. But that's actually not the truth. It's not the case when it comes down to this. What we could do is we can actually change these parameters here. And if we just change the parameters at this point and go like so, and then we'd have to actually change the return value too, because we're working with doubles. So we're gonna change the return value, and now you can see that it actually works perfectly fine. And this would be called method overloading. Okay, so what we're doing is we're using the exact same name, but we're taking in different parameters. So it's kind of neat because the call now, okay, so if we now just wanted to plug in number 1 and number 2, right, it's saying from an integer to a loss because of our double result. We now plug in these values, but now we don't have to actually change anything in the call. Okay, so we run this now and we run it up. Oh, and we're not seeing we're not going to see any of the change here because of I messed that up, so I gotta go like this now and just kind of change up our code. All right, so a little bit of changing, but again, now you can reuse methods along the way, and we can now I can go back and I'll kind of rewrite this so that you see it. Now the lesser the number is 23.3. So you can see that it's actually pretty useful when it comes down to here we'll go with result again. I'll rebuild that whole logic that we had earlier, and we can say lesser underscore number, and we can put the integers in here, number and number underscore 2. Kick that one out. We'll copy this guy, bring it up here, just take number. I should have called them int, but it's not a big deal. And result there. So now we have a result for an integer one, and we have a type for a double type. Okay, and all we had to do is rename it. We still get to use the same name, so we kind of know what the same value is, but we just changed the inside parameters. Now this actually also works in this form as well. If you were to simply change the order in which these are actually brought upon, but one would have to be a double and one would have to be an integer, so these don't actually change. But if you did say, you know, this was a double at this point now, you could then do it here. But the problem that happens is that you have to figure out what value we're going to actually return when it came down to it. So if you notice, double one, or number one, is double at this point if we were just to throw this in here. So this is kind of harder to understand when it comes down to it. We would actually have to, if this was returning an int, you would have to actually, you know, typecast it to an int, so force it to be an integer, and then it should basically be able to work itself through not to have this error, illegal start of a type. No, it should work. Oh, right here. There you go. So you can see now that we typecasted it, it will work. And now this is kind of, you know, a bad example of it, but it's still nonetheless, if you know, you can use these same, it's overloading as long as you change the parameters here. Okay, so if the parameters here are two integers, you can do it with two doubles, you can do it with an integer and a double, you can do it with a short and a byte. You can change it all up and still use the exact same name and the same structure that you had here. Some of the things will change, like what return type you are going to use when it comes down to it. You know, you could actually take these doubles, typecast them into integers, and then it'd be fine. But you know, for this is not really the case. All I'm trying to show you is that you can overload methods and reuse them. And I'll take this one out because it's kind of a nasty example, but it is nonetheless one that you can get away with using. So and one thing I do want to point out, that the return type does not matter. I wish it did, because I believe in the fact that, you know, sometimes just the return type itself should have kind of made a difference, but the only thing that makes a difference is overloading it, is changing the parameter types. Okay, so when you're changing only the parameter types, you can then redeclare and redefine the same method with different parameters. Okay, and again, you might have to change the return type based upon what type of data types you're working with. So that's just dependent upon, you know, what's going on. Again, if you were to take this and you actually wanted integer values out of it, but you were taking in two doubles, you could get away with this. You would just have to then make sure that you are giving back integer types. Okay, it's your logic, depends on what you need it to do, how you're going to actually write it to do what it needs to. At this point, it's, you know, this is wrong because we now have two of the same types up here. So this one's going to give us an error because this does not matter. It does not know that it's a different version of the method based upon the return type alone. Like, this is the kind of logic here that I wished would have worked, but in this form it doesn't. Okay, so just be aware of that when it comes down to it. And again, we'll just remove this because normally you're not going to do something like that, but it's up to you on how you wish to do it. So again, method overloading, same method declaration, or same method defining it, but it does take different parameters right here, and the number of parameters could also be a factor as well. One might only take one parameter in, one might need to take two parameters in, and in that form it would differ greatly. So it would still be the same thing. So even if, you know, the logic doesn't add up in this form or nothing, but it would actually be okay if you were to do something like this. Now these, you know, these don't actually work out, so your logic would have to be different with whatever's in the parameters, with whatever's in here. So just as a baseline, I'll just put return 0, and you'll see there's no error here. If you take in one number and it returns 0, that's, I mean, it's not logic that you're gonna probably do, but I'm just showing you that you can change it up. You can put one parameter, or you can use two parameters. You can have it so that the thing uses 3 different parameters. Okay, so, you know, at one point you could even create it again and make int 3 or number underscore 3 if you needed to add more into it. Okay, and you can, it's just kind of making the same one but multiple usage. So this one doesn't have any use for it, but we could add obviously to this, and then if you did add a third value here, then it would automatically go to this one. Okay, so it's kind of method overloading. I hope I didn't really confuse you on it. It is kind of it is used, it's definitely used, and it's got its time and place for usage. It's a little bit of a weird one, but it still nonetheless has its power in programming. It definitely does. I've used it on several occasions to get myself through some different logics that were, in a case where you needed 2 at one point, or you need 3 values to be passed through or something. It depends on what your logic or your program is. You can't really build these things up without having a good base of knowledge or a good base of logic of what the program should output or should perform for you, or how it should perform for you. So anyways, that's that's obviously those there. That's it for this video, basically. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas for future, just put in the comment section below. If you have any, if you could subscribe to the channel, that'd be wonderful. And thanks for watching again. We'll catch you in the next video.